Welcome to Fantasy Football Court. We are four regular guys talking all things fantasy football. Unlike some other shows, we only talk about fantasy football. We make our arguments, we present our cases, and you are the judge. We are all in the same fantasy football league. The people are real, the league is real, and the trash talking is real. Court is now in session. Welcome again to Fantasy Football Court. We hope you enjoy our show today. My name is Charles.
My name is Andrew.
This is Nick.
And this is Jeremy.
Today we're going to look at the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to put them on the stand, and we're going to cross-examine them and question them at every position. Before we do that, we're just going to get a general overview of the Baltimore Ravens and what we think of what each of us think of that team. Jeremy, I'll start with you. What do you think of Baltimore?
The one word that I would attach to Baltimore this year is struggle.
You think they're going to struggle?
I think they're going to struggle at every position. There's not really, outside of their kicker, there's not really a position of theirs that I'm extremely high on at this point.
Nick?
I'm very high on their defense. I think their defense is going to improve a lot, and I'll get to talk about that later.
Let me make sure I got this right. We're talking about an NFL team. We're talking fantasy football. The first guy brings up the kicker. The second guy brings up the defense. What does that tell you about Baltimore's team? Well, we're high on the defense, and we're higher on the kicker. I kind of agree with it. Andy, what do you think?
I agree with them. There's not much to add to that. There's nobody that really stands out in any of the big positions. Their kickers are best players.
Wow, that's brutal. I mean, you wouldn't say they're as bad as the Jets, though, would you?
No.
You wouldn't go that far.
They like, if we're not talking fantasy football, they're a playoff team. They're just not
a fantasy team.
They're not a fantasy.
There's nobody that
team.
stands out.
They're not staff productive. They're not a stat producing team. They are a run the ball,
play defense.
This is going to be a team. Do you remember the Tampa Bay Bucks team that won the Super Bowl? I think it was, or played in the Super Bowl that year. That didn't have much of an offense, but their defense kept them in every single game.
You can go back to their Super Bowl years.
Yeah, but nobody stood out on that team as one individual.
And that's what you're going to have with this team. This team is going to be a defensive-oriented team that's going to have a good defense that's going to keep them in every game. And the question is, will their offense muster enough to win the game?
But this team isn't really conducive for fantasy football points.
Not unless you own the defense or kicker.
All right, let's look at the quarterback since we're going to break down every position. Joe Flacco is their quarterback, and currently he is the 24th quarterback taken in the draft today. 32 teams, and he's taken 24th? I think it's safe to say he won't be drafted in our league. Jeremy, I'll start with you first. Any comments on Joe Flacco?
The surprising stats from last year, though, did kind of shock me a little bit. Last year, he had a career high in completions, yards, and completion rate. Believe it or not, he had a career high, but he only threw 20 TDs and only averaged 6.4 yards per pass.
He almost equaled that interceptions, though.
Yeah, 15 interceptions.
So what that tells me is he threw a lot, but he threw a lot short.
Yeah, he finished up with the 18th quarterback overall, which is not good in our league.
Right. His tight end, Dennis Pitta, caught a lot of balls last year, but they were a lot of
dink and dunks.
5, 6, 7 yards. Like I said, when a quarterback's only averaging 6.4 yards per pass, then there's cause to be worried. That means they're not taking too many shots downfield. But it's because, let's face it, they don't have a real solid receiving core. And Joe Flacco, his best receiver last year, retired. So
and who was that?
That was Smith. Right, Steve Smith. So he doesn't have a whole lot of talent there to throw to. So it does lead to tight ends and running backs getting a lot of small dink and dunk passes.
Nick, any comment?
I think they improved their offensive line. They drafted, I think, a good offensive lineman, I think in the third round. And Ronnie Stanley, who they picked in the top 5 the year before that, so the second year. So I think their offensive line will be improved, which will help Joe Flacco. Maybe he'll have a little bit more consistency out of the running game this year. And the addition of Danny Woodhead, I think, is going to help a lot. And that's one player that you might look as a breakout maybe. But as far as, we'll get to the running backs later, but anyway, as far as Flacco goes, I think he could improve a lot better. I still have him as my 23rd grade quarterback. I think he's still good quarterback 2 if you want to take the chance on him. Biggest thing he's got to cut down on is interceptions. 15 interceptions last year, and if he can do that, I think he could have a good fantasy season.
Andy, any thoughts?
They lost Steve Smith, lost Aiken. They didn't draft any wide receivers. I mean, that's a struggle position for them, is that wide receiver. And I think we're not talking about tight end yet, but I can see who's the Watson's their tight end this year. Like Jeremy said, wide receiver, the tight end and running backs could see more production out of them when it comes to fantasy points from receiving than you can their wide receivers. And because of the wide receivers, I'm not big on Flacco.
But they picked up Jeremy Maclin in Kansas City.
Right.
But I don't know that's he's a Jeremy Maclin owner last year, and I think he'll tell you that.
Yeah, which I have to say, he did stay hurt the whole entire year with a groin injury. He came out, I think the off-season said the whole entire year he was hurt. He said he was not 100% healthy. So maybe he can get back to his Pro Bowl form, and you're talking about a good receiver for the Ravens, and he might be a viable option. A good viable option for you.
Okay, we're still talking about the quarterback. We'll get to the running backs and wide receivers here in a moment. But these other players, they're all interconnected. If you've got a great wide receiver, but he doesn't have a quarterback that can get him the ball, then your great wide receiver is now an average wide receiver. I think we're all in agreement about Joe Flacco. He's somebody that we either wouldn't draft or maybe pick up on the waiver wire. I wouldn't take a chance on him right now. Nick, would you?
No.
I wouldn't. Andy, would you?
And then I'm not comfortable at all with the backup either. Something happened to him, Ryan Mallett.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on from the quarterback. Now we're going to get to the running backs, and I'll go ahead and let Nick start this. They have Danny Woodhead. We normally seen him with San Diego, and just a really tough, gritty, player that always seemed to grind out some points somehow. But now he's with the Baltimore Ravens, and how do you think that affects his
I
production?
love Danny Woodhead this year because they do not have the single best receiving threat. I like him around the 20 mark. In a PPR league is what we're playing in.
Yes.
So that PPR league and they back then, remember when was it Javarius Buck Allen? They threw to him a lot out of the backfield. I think they're going to try, and with the fullback going, I think he's going to get a lot of receptions out of that backfield, and I think, and especially with not much receivers. And the first 4 weeks, Kenneth Dixon suspended, so I think you're going to see a lot of Danny Woodhead, especially the first 5 or 6 weeks. You're going to see a lot of it, and I like it. And Kenneth Dixon, I think, is going to be your second half running back. He's a young. They love him. He started getting a little bit into the end of last year. He started producing a little bit, battling with Terrence West for that running back position. But with him suspended the first 4 games, you're going to have to wait to the end of the second half of the season for him to produce for you. So, but as far as Terrence West goes, I'm not so sure. I think maybe after the Kenneth Dixon comes back from suspension, you're going to see him fade out of the mix. So I think you're going to have to, if you do take Terrence West, you're not going to see much of him at the end of the season. So you're probably going to have to, I would more Terrence West maybe at the end of the very end, like maybe 14th, 15th round, just as, the first 4 or 5 weeks.
I'm taking a chance on him. Jeremy, what do you think?
One word, nightmare.
Yeah, I'm not liking any of these.
Danny Woodhead's a great receiver, but he's 33 years old, coming off a major injury. I think he'll primarily be their third down back for the most part because of his great pass catching ability. I think that the first 4 weeks, Terrence West will probably start, and him and Danny Woodhead will probably be a 50-50, 60-40 split. Then when Kenneth Dixon comes back, I think Dixon takes the bulk of the carries. Woodhead's more of a third down pass catching back. And I personally am going to stay away from all 3 of these guys. It just scares me, especially with the fact they don't really have a wide receiver. I would fear when Mike Wallace is your best wide receiver on your team. Most defenses are willing to go man-to-man, put 8 men in the box, and stack it and say, beat me deep if you can.
Andy, any thoughts on the backfield?
Same concerns, but I do think Danny Woodhead's going to add a big part to that offense when it comes to catches and stuff, and I think he'll see more time than what we're anticipating. He's with Kenneth Dixon being out for the first 4 games, we'll probably see him quite a bit right off the get-go, but in the past, the Ravens have had running backs that have had a lot of catches. I mean,
Yeah,
I remember Ray Rice
back.
used to be a hot topic, not because of his running, but because they threw to him in a PPR league. It was a big deal.
Right.
And I think we're going to see Danny Woodhead get a lot of catches this year.
How high are y'all comfortable with taking Danny Woodhead? I mean, Jeremy.
I don't draft him.
So he's available in the late round. You still don't mess with him? You got to take a chance on him.
I'd say as high as the
I don't.
fourth round for me.
I don't
Fourth
see
round?
him.
I
I don't
love
see
Danny
him
Woodhead this
being
year.
available.
Danny Woodhead.
I don't see him being available at any round. I would feel comfortable drafting.
I got you.
But-
Andy, would you? I wouldn't mind having him.
I'm not taking him as soon as
I'm
Nick
not
does.
taking
Maybe
him in the
fifth
fourth.
round's probably where I
But if
feel
he's somewhere in the middle,
comfortable,
I might take a chance because we're in a PPR league, and I think he's going to get some catches. So
But what is there any difference between him and Gio Bernard?
I take him.
I'd
over
take
Gio.
Danny Woodhead over Gio.
I think
I'm going to fill out my starting lineup in my draft. I'm going to get a running back, 2 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers. Once I have that, if Danny Woodhead is still available, so what's that? This 5th, 6th round, I'll jump on Danny Woodhead then. But he won't be my first pick.
It also depends on how the running backs are coming off the board.
it
Well,
does.
my
Where
fear
do you
with
take
Woodhead
him?
though is he becomes that guy because he's so pass catching reliant that you start and he gets 5 points, you bench, he gets 20.
Oh, that's
Oh, yeah,
So
that's
I
definitely
try to
one.
avoid in my drafting. I try to avoid catch players like that mess with my head,
Yeah.
and try to avoid something that I have to labor every week,
To
spending
decide.
10 minutes trying to figure out do I bench him or start him.
All right, let's go to the wide receivers now. We know that Jeremy Maclin has left Kansas City. He's with Baltimore. How much of an improvement do you think that makes in the wide receiver corps? Jeremy, we'll start with you.
I don't think it makes him any better than when Steve Smith was with him.
Yeah. So there's really none of the receivers that you're really.
No, you got
One
Maclin.
thing-
Maclin could be a decent possession guy. Mike Wallace had 70 catches and 1,000+ yards, but only had 4 TDs.
Yeah.
Then Rashad Perriman, he's a speedster but has horrible hands and subpar route running. There's not many players on this Ravens team
I
that
agree.
excite me.
Nick?
I think our receiving core is going to be about the same it was last year. I do think maybe Rashad Berryman, if he can stay healthy, might be somebody that could break out just because he's so big and physical. They might could throw it up to him in the red zone. Of course, he does have inconsistent hands, but I mean, he's just so big and physical. He could be something you could go to in the red zone. So, especially with Dennis Pita gone, they need a red zone target, and we all know Macklin's not a red zone target. We know Mike Wallace is not really that good of a red zone target, so he could be their red zone target.
Just not a lot to get excited about in that wide receiver field. Got any comment on the wide receiver?
About the same. Perriman coming out of the OTAs though has impressed
I like Perry.
some of
I
those
do like
folks,
Perriman.
and so I think that he might. But again, the Ravens, when you look at their wide receivers, there's nobody I'm drafting. Anywhere in the high.
I
So
got you. All right, let's move on to the tight ends, and I'll let Nick start with this one.
All right, so if you do not know, Dennis Pita retired. He had another hip injury. He's gone. So that gives room for Crockett Gilmore and Benjamin Watson. Well, Benjamin Watson had 2 years ago had a really good year with the Saints. Well, last year he got hurt in preseason and was done for the year. But he's also, I think, 35, 36 years old. He is getting up there in age.
37.
37. Oh, that's low. So how much can you rely
Hey,
on?
it ain't that old.
Yeah, well.
Come on now.
How much can you rely on Benjamin Watson to produce as old as he is? So maybe I don't see you really touching any of the Baltimore tight ends, drafting any of them. Maybe if Crockett Gilmore, he's a young tight end. Maybe if he gets to where he could actually not produce maybe later in the season. I'm not sure. Maybe that's just a big maybe.
Jeremy, any thoughts on tight ends?
I love Benjamin Watson as a person,
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
but not as a football player in fantasy
Okay.
football.
Especially on this team.
Right. I do think interesting stat is Joe Flacco threw 228 passes to tight ends and running backs last year. So I think there's going to be volume there. I don't know how many yards and TDs that equates to, but I think whoever's at tight end will see 6 to 8
Some production.
6 to 8 pass catches a game. and occasionally we'll get a 20-point outing if they score a touchdown. Because if you're catching PPR league, 6 catches is 6 points. If you have 40 yards in that, that's a 10-point, and then a touchdown, 16 points. That's respectable.
Right, not bad. Andy, any thoughts on tight ends?
I think we're going to see a tight end by committee, throughout the year by the Ravens. But the problem is those 3 top tight ends they have all have injury problems. They're dealing with knees, shoulders, and Achilles with Watson. I think we're going to end up seeing tight end by committee. You don't see that in a lot of teams, but I think we're going to see that with Baltimore this year. So they might get a lot of passes, they might get a lot of yards, but who's going to be in the game?
That's one reason why I like Danny Woodhead.
Did they draft Max Williams?
I'm not sure where Max Williams is.
I think they drafted him a year or 2 ago.
Oh, okay. Well, there just doesn't seem to be much excitement about the tight end position. All right, let's look at the 2 things that we did mention and bring up about this team, and that would be the defense we'll start with. And I'll let Jeremy start with the defense.
Defense, last year they were 5th in the NFL against the rush and 9th against the pass.
That's impressive.
They brought back all of their key players on defense, added a couple of good players. First 2 weeks of the year, in the first 4 weeks of the year, they played Cleveland and Jacksonville, so that always bodes good for any defense. I have them as a top 5 defense on my board. I really think that when the defenses start falling, that in your draft, if you're comfortable with your lineup at that point, it's okay to take them a little bit early if somebody else is starting to pull triggers on defense.
Just for me personally, when it comes to defenses, I'm not even going to have my starting lineup. I'm going to have my backups, and I may even have a flyer or 2 before I pick defenses, but that's just my philosophy. Nick, you have any thoughts on it?
I love Baltimore's defense this year. It's a top 5 defense, just like Jeremy said. They added Tony Jefferson, which with him and Eric Weddle might give them, besides Seattle, the best tandem safety in NFL.
Get over Arizona.
Arizona's got Tron Matthew at safety, and then what's his name, the corner.
Peterson. They're not playing Peterson at the free safety.
No, he's a corner. Well, anyway, I think that's the second best tandem safety in the NFL now. And adding Tim Williams and Tyus Browser, the 2 rookies they drafted. Tim Williams is mostly just a pass rush specialist, but Tyus Browser is an every down player. With Terrell Suggs still there, which he is getting older, but he's still a producer player. And signing Brandon Williams, and they got used first round pick on Humphrey. So this is probably what hurt was Jimmy Smith getting hurt, but still that secondary is probably the best it's been in a while. And if they re-sign Zachary Orr, who retired 2 years ago because of injury, is making a comeback. If they sign him, he led the team in tackles 2 years ago. So it's a lot of pluses on that defensive side of the ball. There could be a defense you could really draft that might come off the board pretty high.
Good deal. All right, Andy, I don't have any.
I think I agree with them being a top 5 defense. And I think Baltimore's going to be one of those defenses that you're going to get somewhat consistent points out throughout the year, regardless of who they're playing.
Sacks,
with their special teams and with the defense. And I know, he drafts defense absolutely last and picks them up from week to week, and most defenses you can, but I think Baltimore's up there in that top that you're going to hang on to them throughout the year, and you're going to use them quite a bit, and you might even draft them if defenses start falling off the board. I think they're in that top 5.
I don't know that they're a high turnover team. I don't know that I would suspect them getting a ton of interceptions, but I think they're going to limit people's rushing yards, passing yards, touchdowns, and they're going to get a lot of sacks.
And so starting off like a PPR, as soon as you start the game, defense has 15 points. I think they're going to kind of keep you right in there somewhere.
And the more teams
consistently,
and the more yards that are gained, you lose those points in our league. I'm not sure how yours is set up. So if you've got a team that can keep the passing yards down and keep the rushing yards down, it obviously helps you. They're pretty high on the Baltimore defense. All right, let's talk about the other position that they were pretty high on, and that would be the kicker. I'm going to let Nick take this one.
Number 1 kicker. Last year I had him on my team. I had 20-something points in a game from a kicker. That should tell you how good a kicker he is. He's automatic. He's a boomer. He's consistently hitting 50-yard.
10 for 10 last year.
I think he set the record for most 50-yard field goals.
10 for 10 last year.
Yeah, so he's just
and
the
14
best kicker.
for 14 between 40 and 49.
Yeah, for long range, he's automatic.
And That's huge fantasy football points.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
I mean,
Jeremy, any thoughts on the kicker?
I just think with a limited offense that the Patriots have, the Baltimore has, but the Baltimore has, that it leads to a lot of field goals. And Tucker's your man.
I guess now it comes down to where you would draft him at. I mean, if your starting lineup is set, you've got a couple backups. Do you break off, and is he that good of a player that maybe you get him in the 7th or 8th round?
No.
Maybe 10th or 11th.
10th or 11th is what y'all are thinking? That's
I
about
wouldn't
what I'm
go.
thinking.
I don't know that I would go that high on him because
Yeah.
I don't think the separation between him and Gostkowski is that great.
Or Dan Bailey's pretty.
Yeah, I won't draft a kicker till round 14.
But
15.
with the
I'm the same way.
consistency of his points, though, I mean, he's going to be one of the first ones drafted. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind being that first one to draft him at the right spot.
Like Gronk
Yeah.
is in a higher level than all other tight ends, so therefore he's more valuable and you draft him higher. Is this kicker such elite level that you would maybe reach and grab him a little sooner?
Maybe one round,
Maybe
2
one
rounds
round,
before,
okay.
but only if your team is
There's
stacked.
there's other teams that have other kickers that have more field goals made after touchdowns, but he by far has the most
Yeah, that's one
made
point.
with the 3 points and then plus the yardage
Yeah.
points.
Last year, our first kicker went in the 4th round. I'm willing to
That
draft
is crazy.
Justin Tucker in the 2 rounds earlier in the 12th.
He went in the 4th round.
You didn't say 4. You 14.
Yeah.
You just said
14.
4.
No, I
You
said
said
14.
you said 4.
You said
Yeah,
fourth
Well, it's
round.
14th. 14th was the first kicker.
Yeah,
That's
and that's
the-
about right. I mean, you don't want to draft. You don't want to. To me, you don't draft a kicker or defense.
If I'm comfortable with my team, I'm drafting Tucker in the 14th round.
Yeah, I'll take him 14.
yeah.
All right, I think we've covered all things Baltimore. We've tried to get you the different positions and the players and where they should be taken. I think the consensus is pretty much stay away from the starters as far as the position players. But if you can get their defense or kicker, later in the draft, if your team is set and you've already got your few backups and different things, and it's time for that to go, I think the kickers for Baltimore is who you want. Any last things?
No, I don't think there's anybody on the team that really stands out. But if there's a player like Woodhead, if you're in the boat with Nick and you really like him, you might take him and you might sit on your bench just in case he's
Yeah.
that guy. Other than that, there's nobody that really stands out unless you get the kicker or defense.
Nick?
Yeah, Woodhead, kicker, defense is what they got. You might have a sleeper and maybe one of their tight ends or apparently.
Nick? Jeremy?
That's pretty much it. Just
Pretty
being
much it.
redundant at this point of just defense and kicker.
All right. We appreciate you watching. If you have any comments, questions, or anything like that, hit us up on our social media.
You go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All of them are at FF Porter.
Feel free to DM us or send us a message. We'll be more than happy to get back with you and discuss things with you. If you have any questions or anything like that, do that as well.
All right. For this session, court is adjourned.